Otherwise,
Okay.
we'll all hear it. And then there's a chat on the right side of the screen that
Okay.
people are watching can ask questions.
Okay. So, okay, I just opened the YouTube window, but it just says live stream is starting soon. So,
Yep.
as soon as that goes, I'll mute it.
Yeah, it takes like 30 seconds to kick on.
Okay.
And it should be up now. Sweet,
All
sweet.
right.
Cool. You have the Google Doc and everything if you care to use it.
Okay.
But yeah, anything special that you want said in your intro, not said?
I'm pretty fine with everything. I'll just talk about what what I do.
Almost too easygoing.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm
The link that
Martha's.
we put out with the show, I put your actual web page as opposed to your YouTube page, just because your web page goes to the YouTube page.
Okay, that's totally fine because I have a lot of content on there that's actually not on the YouTube channel, so that works out perfect because I've had the website going on for about 4 years now before launching the show, so there's a lot of content on there that never made it onto the YouTube show.
Yeah, I noticed, and after your videos, you lead people to the web page, so I just figured that was where you wanted to
Okay,
land.
that's perfect. Thank you.
Superhero Corey over there. Oh, by the way, Casey, this is Corey. Corey.
Hi,
Hi.
Corey. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I feel like I already had met you because I've watched your guys' podcast before, so
I'm really sorry.
no, I had a good time watching it actually.
Oh, thank you.
Everyone likes watching a car accident once in a while. Sweet. Well, then, yeah, I guess we'll get the shit show on the road.
All right.
Close everything. So yeah, I don't. None of the audio, like the music and stuff you heard when you did you watch it or did you listen to it?
I watched it. I watched it on your YouTube page.
Cool. Yeah, because when we produce it and post it to iTunes, there's music and stuff.
Okay.
I don't do any of it live because it's easier to do it later. But
Yeah.
cool. All right, then we will start this. We'll start recording and we'll be off to the races. Welcome to episode 45 of the Podcast Terry, production of Galactic Netcasts. This is the podcast about all things scary. I am your host, Matt Stein. With me, as always, is Corey. I don't know. I sweat all the time. Scott, Corey, how are you?
I'm balmy.
You're balmy. Are you sweaty though?
Well, yeah, it's a light balm. It's more of a Sierra Mist.
Sugar-free. So diet Sierra Mist or regular Sierra Mist?
It's definitely not caffeinated. I can't handle that this late at night.
Cranberry Splash though.
As much as possible.
Be all end all of Sierra Mists. For more on this podcast, including show notes, contact information, subscription links, go to gncast.com/pot. For other shows from the Galactic Netcast, go to gncast.com. Spoiler, we spoil things, and I can't read my own writing. We're going to talk about the Slumber Party Massacre trilogy, mostly the second one with our super special guest today. So if you have not watched that, go ahead, watch it now. Pause the audio or just go back and watch the video later. Plus, I really like to swear a lot, so if you're new to this podcast, I apologize if I offend you. But tonight, like I said, we're going to be doing 1987 Slumber Party Massacre 2 with our special guest, Casey Hansen, also known as the Homicidal Homemaker. Casey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Probably better that there's not two guys sitting here talking to each other on the internet. So, yeah, really happy to have you. Before we get into anything, I would like people to know what you do. If you've never seen what Casey does, please explain it.
Well, I'm better known as the Homicidal Homemaker, where home economics meets horror. I've been dubbed as the macabre Martha Stewart, and basically I teach people how to put a horror spin on everyday cooking.
Yeah, I found Casey through the Twin Peaks Facebook page several months back when you had done the Black Lodge pie, and I thought you were fantastic, and that pie looked amazing. And I
Thank
got all
you.
excited because Matt has said many times that he wants to do a cooking podcast, and I was like, well, you need to see this because this is terrific.
That is the true story of how we've gotten to this point.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We had a lot of fun filming that episode. I wanted to do a Twin Peaks episode, especially because Twin Peaks Day on February 24th, it coincided with our release schedule. So it was perfect timing, and when I told my producer I wanted to recreate the Black Lodge, I personally thought I was a little bit insane, but anyone who has a horror cooking show and a horror cooking blog has to be a little insane, right? So when we wanted to recreate the Black Lodge, I didn't know if it was going to be a possibility, but we made it happen, and we had some Black Lodge craziness, backwards filming. So I don't know if you guys caught that, all of the screaming scenes with my doppelganger. That actually was filmed backwards and reversed, just like David Lynch did with the Black Lodge on Twin Peaks. So that was a total blast to film.
Yeah, your production values on your videos are just impeccable. They're just so upscale, and you can see the effort that's put into it. You were telling us a little bit about the people that you work with your production company, and it sounds like a very small group, but you can't get that from watching it. It's so well done, and the little touches and things that you do there. I remember in the Twin Peaks when you even had the R&R Diner coffee mug.
I'm so glad you noticed.
I'm wearing an R&R Diner T-shirt right now that you can't see.
That's awesome.
On my microphone, but yeah, your stuff is really just wonderful, and it's such a fun show. And I see that you sometimes do reviews and things of products that kind of align with what your viewers would be interested in. So people should definitely check out your site because it's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me and to the crew, especially noticing the little details such as the double R mug. We love to put little Easter eggs, so to speak, in the episodes, and it's really fun for us when people catch that.
So when you and I were setting up, planning this episode and everything, you did mention that you may or may not be doing a Slumber Party Massacre 2 recipe. Can we get a sneak peek, maybe?
It's in the works. I like to keep everything a surprise, but that movie's very dear to my heart, so I definitely want to do an episode, but I will not say what it is. That's something to stay tuned for. But I have loved this movie for so long. It was one of those movies that my friend was like, haven't you ever wanted to rent one of these? And we rented it, and we were obsessed with it.
Yeah, this has been on our list of movies to watch for a while. I was so glad that you mentioned it, and I almost thought I read it wrong when you said it. But I remember we used to do the same thing in high school. We would just go to the movie store when those still existed and rent VHS based on how terrible the covers were, and this was one of them. And I've been meaning to watch this movie for however many years it's been, but I'm super excited when it came up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I look for any excuse to talk horror with other like-minded folks, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, you're welcome to come back anytime, because, I don't know, I like talking, and Corey just kind of sits over there. He likes talking.
I also like baking, so I think having somebody who pushes us to that is kind of nice, too.
I like food a lot.
Yeah, so do I.
You mentioned earlier that people have called you the macabre Martha Stewart. Now I have to ask, you are Martha Stewart's Sands insider trading, though, right?
Exactly. Minus the jail time and all that, so.
Cool, so you have not been in the clink, so that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, I haven't gotten caught. The homicidal side hasn't caught up to me just yet, so.
Yeah. Well, Corey, she's closer to you, so see you later.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. We'll start with some news, and then we actually got a piece of fan mail that I want to cover, and then we'll get into our movie. And so excited! First story we have is could Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock, be the star of the Universal Wolfman movie? I really like The Rock. I think he's really good in comedy movies. But I guess, what do you guys think of having The Rock as a horror icon such as the Wolfman?
Should I really answer that right now?
No, you're allowed. We will shit upon whatever we need to shit upon. You've got to keep in mind, these are the movies that are coming out that are supposed to be part of Universal's trying to make their Avengers. They're trying to use the Universal monster classic creatures to make a crossover universe to try to catch up to what Marvel's doing and what Warner Brothers is doing with their DC Universe stuff. So we've already got some strange things, like Tom Cruise is going to be the Mummy, Johnny Depp is cast as the Invisible Man, Russell Crowe is Dr. Jekyll, and Angelina Jolie is possibly going to be playing the Bride of Frankenstein. So adding to that The Rock as the Wolfman, never the first choice I would think of to play a werewolf at all. I mean, unless maybe in some of those action movies that they had, the Underworld series. But in this lineup, it sounds kind of right.
You know, they've gotten a good cast, it appears. They have a list of pretty great actors, so I would be open to seeing it. Right now, the idea just seems kind of outrageous, in my opinion. Just the cast, like I said, they're great actors, but thinking of it with Universal Monsters, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I completely agree. None of these people have ever really done a horror movie, and they're not. I hate to use the term older, but they're older actors. They're not like young talent, so it doesn't really add up.
Well, Tom Cruise has done. He played Lestat in Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, that's very true. You went.
Yeah,
I liked him as in that role. I thought he was great.
Yeah, and it's hard to figure out what is going to be these individual takes on these characters that puts them into a situation where they're going to have a crossover in the long run. Like, what is the meaning of this? Because the only crossover that Universal Monsters have had that I know of, really, was Abbott and Costello. And they were played by all the classic actors. It stands out as a pretty incredible movie that is both a good classic horror movie feel, but inserts comedy into it. I'm not sure how to take them and make them action-type movies, which it sounds closer to what this should be, other than Monster Squad.
The Monster Squad is probably my favorite quote of all times. It's "kick him in the nards."
He doesn't have nards.
Yeah. Oh, that's such
I love that movie. One of my top favorites.
I think I saw it. I didn't see it until I was like 19 or 20, which is my mistake. But I was more of a Little Monsters kind of kid.
Well,
The
at
Howie
least,
Mandel?
What's that?
at least,
Somebody talk.
The Howie Mandel Little Monsters? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
With
the
Fred
Howie
Savage?
Mandel Little Monsters and Fred Savage. Casey, what were you gonna say?
oh, I was going to say at least it doesn't matter what age you get introduced to a great horror flick as long as you get introduced to it. So even if it was at 19, at least you got to experience it and it became one of your favorites. So
Really good point. There's a lot of times people complain about how could you have not seen this movie? Better late than never.
yeah, exactly.
The moral
Also, what the great thing that Monster Squad did for me is that it taught me that the first time you lose your virginity, if it's to a certain person, it doesn't count.
Yeah, and you better hope no one asks you to hold an amulet and recite some verses.
Well, this day,
Then,
if you do it, you're dumb because you should know by now not to do it.
All right, our next story coming is it's still, I mean, both of these things are kind of rumorish conjecture, but this one is near and dear to our hearts because we had a really fun episode.
I think
we reviewed Gremlins 2.
Two people are going to be real happy about this or real sad.
Gremlins 3 is apparently happening. And
wow.
I cannot wait. And it sounds like it's going to not be a reboot. It's not going to be a remake in any way, shape, or form. It's legitimately Zach Galligan is coming back to it. I hope to God they somehow get Phoebe Cates to come out of retirement because I love Phoebe Cates. And they are planning to do a third movie, including, I believe, the original people involved with it. Robert Zemeckis should be coming back to it as well.
How do you really improve upon Gremlins 2, though? Such a masterpiece. Sarcasm.
Well, I think the news is fantastic that they have, so many people rumored to be involved that were originally involved with it. I think that gives a lot of hope to a sequel. There's also a lot of room for error just because of the time span, but I think that when you do have a lot of the original elements, there's a lot more hope for it. I love Gremlins, so I'll give it a shot.
Oh, yeah,
then again, I also love Ghostbusters, and I'm not going to say anything about the new Ghostbusters. But
my question was going to be, how do you feel about the new Ghostbusters? I'm serious. You have to answer that question.
I don't plan on watching it, but I'm just happy. I'm happy that it caused Ecto Cooler to be resurrected. I will say that.
No, because I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't found it anywhere either. I had to go on Amazon Prime Pantry, and I ordered 2 cases that I kind of have in this little private reserve that I'm rationing out until I can find it in stores.
So
But
your
it has the potential of sticking around longer because of the fact that there's going to be a whole bunch of new merchandising. They've already announced a new cartoon series for Ghostbusters. I expect we'll see new video games and things come out. There's so much potential just for Ghostbusters being in the general zeitgeist again, being something that people see, and whether or not the movie is successful. I like all the actresses that are in it. I'm interested to see what they do with it, but at the same time, yeah, you relaunch such a beloved property, it's almost impossible for that to stand up to what the originals were, and I don't expect it to. I also didn't expect them to go full bore asshole and use Fall Out Boy for the theme song, but whatever. That's what disappointment tastes like. But we still get the sweet taste of Ecto Cooler, and hopefully for years to come we'll have more Ghostbusters stuff to pull through.
What do you think about Surge came back, and that was like an Amazon only release, and now it's everywhere. So I'm hoping that same thing happens with Ecto Cooler.
I hope so, and I think that it would be a great opportunity. Coca-Cola should realize that General Mills has a great success with their Monster cereals released seasonally every October. So if they made it to where it was only a seasonal release, I think that they would do really well with it instead of just pulling it all together. And I'm not sure if you guys saw my review that I did. I was one of the lucky folks that got a little trial, or I got it before it came out. And it was really weird, and I must really like my crew over here because I was willing to share my can with everybody here, so it didn't go very far, but I was like, I must like you guys. But they also left a little card in there that said, enjoy it because it won't last forever. And I'm like, well, they need to realize that this is huge for people who, I mean, there's been petitions, and for the past, I don't know, I would say 15 years, because they did pull it off the shelves as Ecto Cooler, and it did remain under various names, but I always said no Slimer, no dice, and now there's no Slimer on it, but I'm okay because I actually had it in my hand, and I'm like, okay, I'll settle for no Slimer. It's back. But, you know, I just hope that it does stick around, and I hope they see how much it actually means to a lot of people, and there's this whole other generation, because all of us grew up drinking it, and now we all have kids. So, well, I don't have kids, but people within my age demographic have kids, and they want their children to experience that. So I hope that they see the opportunity and they keep it around, even if it's only seasonally. I know once I find it, I plan to buy a lot of it, despite the sugar content.
So does it taste the same as you remember it tasting?
Oh, exactly. It was like this total rush of nostalgia when I drank it. And on the video, when I drank it, like we didn't show this part where I actually opened the can. My hands were quivering. I was like so overwhelmed that I was actually getting this opportunity to open a can of Ecto Cooler. I sound like such a dork right now, but I am.
No, I went crazy when Mountain Dew started coming out with real sugar again, and they started selling it in glass bottles. I was the same way, because that was my entire teenage years, was drinking glass bottle Mountain Dew and driving around with my friends, listening to Warrant and Poison and things like that. And just that was like, that's the flavor of my youth. And when you get that back, yeah, it's like going backwards in time to a wonderful place that maybe the memories are sweeter than what the actual stuff tastes like. But no, I get it. And the Ecto Cooler thing, you're absolutely right. If you want to create a scarcity for the idea of having it still be beloved but not taken for granted, then release it every once in a while. That's what Disney does with their movies. They put them back in the vault after a certain period of time, so there's the excitement of, oh, Snow White's out on Blu-ray finally, and then they take it away so that you only get that moment in time to capture it. Otherwise, yeah, it's like, oh, well, I can buy Snow White, or I can buy that anytime. And this is the same thing. Now, I do like the idea that you could use the formula and not necessarily just strictly tie it to Ghostbusters. For instance, there's a lot of slime in Gremlins, and it seems like they could maybe alter the formula a little bit, but do something to tie into this as well.
Yeah, that would be killer. And think about the other demographic that they would hit. There's people that will buy it specifically because of the tie-in. And so there's a lot of people that they had never experienced Ecto Cooler, or maybe they don't remember drinking it, maybe they were too young, or maybe their family sadly didn't buy it, though I can't imagine a life being like that without your parents buying you Ecto Cooler when it's available. But there's these people that have never experienced it, and they've heard about like this cult following and all these people who've tried to crack the recipe and have just petitioned for it. So even if they did tie it in with like Gremlins or another movie, I mean, you're hitting this totally different demographic, and people will go nuts for it. I mean, I feel like it would be a missed opportunity.
It seems like Gremlins, what they could do is they could have it in a clear packaging and come with little candies that you pop them into it, and they start out looking like the regular Gremlins, but then they kind of melt down to look like the evil ones because they got wet.
That
or
would
maybe
be
they'll split up
amazing.
or something. But nice that nostalgia comes back to us, and nice to see the people who did the original Gremlins deciding that maybe it's the right time to do a sequel. It's one of those things that I don't feel like the time between, because it was 1990 the last one came out. People are still going to enjoy it, and it will give them the cause to go back and watch the originals again, which is always nice for companies to be selling those old Blu-rays of movies that they already own and don't have to do anything with. But the funny thing is that Gremlins 1 was so different from Gremlins 2, I just kind of wonder what they would do to differentiate Gremlins 3. Do they go backwards to being a little bit darker and more serious like the first one was, or do they try to go even further into the territory that they did with Gremlins 2?
Yeah, that's a good question, especially because of the time span. It leaves so much room for a new storyline. I mean, maybe we'll see his children, Zach, I'm blanking out on his last name right now.
Galligan.
Yes, maybe it's his character has children now, and maybe this new batch is born. I mean, there's a lot of room for a new storyline, but I feel like in this day and age, comedy sells a lot more. I mean, I love comedy and I love horror. I would like to see it be a little bit darker like the first one, but I do think that they'd probably take it to a sillier, more humorous route.
The Gremlins are all the children of the female Gremlin from Gremlins 2 and that guy who worked at the TV studio.
I love that character.
That would be really funny. Gremlins 3 is all half gremlin, half humans. Take over the world. Or they go back.
That could be a dark turn.
Make it a little weird. I'm still holding out hope for Gremlins 3, Gremlins in Time. Third story that we have this week is that Selma Blair has joined Nicolas Cage in a movie called Mom and Dad. That is one mediocre thing joining a bad thing for a terrible sounding thing.
Yeah, and it sounds like the movie that just came out from, wasn't it M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong that did the movie about the grandparents?
Yeah, the movie sucked.
Yeah, this sounds a little bit similar. Says, I don't know. It follows a brother and sister whose parents suddenly turn homicidal and want to kill them during a 24-hour period of unexplained mass hysteria. So it's a bit like The Purge. It's a bit like
The Visit.
That other film. What was that?
Visit.
Yeah, The Visit. Which, man, I didn't expect it to be good, but my wife was hugely disappointed. She keeps giving that guy a try, and he just keeps letting her down.
Too easy. I'll let that one go. Yeah, that movie let me down. Casey, did you see it by chance?
I have not.
Okay,
the last, well, sorry, I was going to bring up something else. But no, I have not seen that movie. And I don't know if I'll see this one that you're speaking about with Nicolas Cage, just because the last few that I saw were a little painful, but maybe I'll give it a try.
Nicolas Cage movies or just modern horror movies?
Nicolas Cage movies. I don't know why I subject myself to this horror, but I do it sometimes. I did watch that Left Behind. I also go to the, like this worst movie group where we watch a terribly bad movie. So we're trying to find the worst of the worst, and fortunately for Nicolas Cage's career, we found a lot of those. Left Behind, that was horrible. I mean, it was fun to watch with the group, but then recently my crew and I, we watched Vampire's Kiss, and
yes,
I was so weirded out by the end of it. I'm like, this is the weirdest movie I think I've ever seen.
But that is the greatest example of what Nicolas Cage in a horror movie should be. Have you seen it, Matt?
No. No.
Okay, Vampire's Kiss is Nicolas Cage. He meets a woman that he kind of believes she's a vampire, and she's turned him into a vampire, and he's slowly transforming, but it turns out, no, none of that's true. It's just so perfectly batshit crazy that it's exactly what Nicolas Cage movies should be.
I'll pass.
Yeah, it was strange, and I believe the vampiress, I think she was the lead in Flashdance. I've never seen Flashdance.
Jennifer Beals.
Yeah. So it was just an interesting movie, and I'm like, is he descending into madness, or is he actually a vampire? I mean, it was so weird, and of course when he's overacting and he recites the entire alphabet, I mean, we were laughing so hard. So anytime I hear a Nicolas Cage, I automatically associate him with some of these like horrible roles that I've seen him in, such as the Wicker Man remake, which
not good.
Horrible, but in a very laughable way. I mean, it was pretty funny.
Just for clarification, Nicolas Cage does not descend into madness. Madness descends into Nicolas Cage.
That's a good point.
So speaking of I don't mean to get off topic of Nicolas Cage, but I do. Speaking of your shitty movie club, have you ever seen the movie Bloody Murder?
No. Sounds like something right up my alley.
Do it. It was another one we watched in high school. I actually just bought Bloody Murder 1 and 2 and 2 other movies on a DVD for $6.95 on Amazon or something. But it's like a Friday the 13th knockoff, and the killer's name is Trevor Morehouse. So yeah, you find it, watch it.
Okay.
Let me know what you think. Do you have anything else to say about Selma Blair and Nicolas Cage in a movie that sounds horrendous?
I just want them to both find happiness and wellness together.
Shut up. So then I guess before we go ahead and get into the Slumber Party 2 Massacre discussion that I've been waiting for all week, I just want to read some fan mail from Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. It says, just emailing to say that your podcast is fucking awesome. I love listening to it on my way to and from work for all the crazy shit that is said. Plus, I love how you guys talk about horror movies and news like normal people and not like how Hollywood business folks talk about it. I got hooked on your show because he follows Matt Vincent and found it on YouTube. Keep up the kick-ass shows, and thanks. Thanks, Jeff. Matt Vincent, a friend of ours, trying really hard to get him to come back again. But yeah, Corey and I are just two guys sitting in our bedrooms talking to the internet.
Yeah, we're very far away from what Hollywood people are like, except for the key parties.
And we're hipsters.
Apparently.
We're hipsters. Yeah, we were called hipsters once by someone on Twitter. That's how we knew we made it in the world.
Yeah. Angry tweets. We all want.
I cared for like a week. I gave up on that.
Yeah, actually, we should ask. You have a YouTube channel, and YouTube is where festering boils of humanity remain. Have you gotten any kind of wonderfully horrific comments from fans? And I say fans with air quotes.
That you want to talk about, too.
Yeah.
Every now and then I come across somebody who just doesn't get it. And they're like, that's disgusting. Why would you make it look like intestines? You know, does it not look like I planned that out? I called the recipe edible entrails. Of course it's supposed to look disgusting. So there's a few times where I get people that they just don't get it. And they're like, what the heck's wrong with you? Actually, they probably say it a little more vulgar than that, but what the heck's wrong with you? Oh my gosh, homicidal. You know, they just, you know, they read it and they think I'm evil. Maybe I am. And that's for them to find out.
And D&D will make you kill your family, and Harry Potter is the devil's work. My mom made a dirty kitty litter box cake. And
those are gross.
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with food. My life is made up of very simple rules, and one of my rules is never stare directly at the McNugget, which is I don't want to know where my food comes from. I don't want to think too hard about it, because if I do, then I won't ever be able to eat. And when you make things look like what they actually came from, or you make them look like other disgusting things, I kind of get a little bit squeamish. But everything that I've seen you make on your show looks delicious and macabre, and I think that, yeah, there's going to be some people who don't get it, but those are people who probably shouldn't be venturing down the depths of YouTube anyways. They're not going to find happiness there.
Yeah, that's a good point. They definitely shouldn't be going on a horror cooking show if they're not horror fans, because while you are going to find things that you normally would eat, they are going to have a morbid horror twist on them. They're not going to be what you'd normally find on, a standard soccer mom blog. I'm like the soccer mom's evil sister that no one talks about, So I will still introduce all those tutorials and all of the cooking recipes, and I do want them to be easy where people can do them, because I don't think it's fun to go onto a website or to watch a tutorial and you want to make it, but then it's got a list like this long of ingredients, and some of them are expensive, and then there's a million steps with the possibility that it may or may not turn out, or you may or may not like it. So that's one thing I always keep in mind with my recipes, is keep them pretty affordable, keep them pretty easy, and, keep it fun.
Fun stuff that everybody can make.
Yeah, we're looking at
yeah.
soul-crushing fuck. So, as mentioned about a dozen times, we're going to talk about Slumber Party Massacre 2. I'm so excited I can't talk. Now, I have never seen 1 and 3. Casey, you made it sound like you were very familiar with the entire trilogy. So, what the fuck happened in the first one that the second one makes no sense?
I would say that all of them, they're supposed to be related, but there really isn't a crossover between the three of them. The first one, okay, I had originally seen the second one before I delved into the world of the first and third one. The first one was legitimately scary. The driller killer was terrifying. He seemed like a pervert. He seemed like the type of guy you would not want to run into alone on the street. Just legitimately looked like a killer, in my opinion. He was very creepy. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great straight-up horror. So then you go over to part 2, and there's more elements of comedy in it rather than horror. I mean, it does have some great gore. There's some really great special effects on is it okay to give spoilers on here?
Yeah, we spoil the shit. That's in our opener.
Okay. Well, there's a part where this guy, he gets a drill like right through his chest, and I think that effect looks really great, especially for 80s horror. And it takes a totally different turn. I mean, from part 1, it's part 2, the main character, Courtney, is supposed to be the little sister in part 1. It's a totally different actress. It's Crystal Bernard from Wings, if you're familiar with Wings. I've never actually watched it, but I know that she's on that. And, the first one, it's this killer is like stalking these girls. And so she's the little sister of the lead actress. And so in part 2, the lead actress is supposed to be in a mental institution. The little sister's grown up, and she's being haunted by memories of the driller killer. Even though the driller killer has been reincarnated into a love child of Andrew Dice Clay and an Elvis impersonator with a guitar with a drill on the end of it.
I thought he looked more like Jerry Only, but like...
Slumber Party Massacre 1 was actually done, it was supposed to be sort of a spoof on these kinds of killer movies. It came out in 1982, and it kind of got bought and rewritten to be a little bit more serious. But there's still elements of comedy in it, things that are just a little bit like, oh, okay, I can see that was something that got left in from the original script. The nice-ish thing about Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2 is that they were written by women. They were produced and directed by women as well, even though they were from Roger Corman's studios. So it was nice to see female characters utilizing these things, that they felt like they had genuine personalities, and the conversation between them, the things they did, felt like they were genuine things. But Slumber Party Massacre 2, yeah, absolutely. They follow the kid sister from the first one. They make broad references to the elder sister and her being institutionalized, but it does seem like a lot of it is sort of a PTSD. The question becomes, is Courtney just suffering from psychosis, and are all these things happening in her head? Because by the time we get through it, it stops and resets a couple of times. She wakes up from a dream, and then she wakes up from a dream again, and it's not really otherwise there's not any kind of ties to the first one. The killer is very different, and the music aspect just seems tied to her personality because she's in a band.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot in there too that I feel that the part 2 is really a don't have sex before you're married movie. And on one of the documentaries I watched, I mean, they were saying that her friends are engaging in all this very adult behavior, and she's supposed to be the very virginal, goody-goody girl who had to, trick her mom into letting her go to this slumber party weekender. And they were saying that the drill is supposed to be like this big scary thing about. It's supposed to. I'm trying to think of a night. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so they're saying that that's kind of what it's related. That it's about like the being scared of, and he says in there, "Don't go all the way." He says that a couple times. So.
He also implies that he's the one who's supposed to be having sex with her. Like he's been waiting for her for himself. And so
Exactly.
when she starts being interested in another guy, I think that's almost what summons him and causes all of this to happen. It does. I mean, I hadn't even really thought about that it is kind of an analogy about losing your virginity and going from being the proper girl that you feel like you have to be because of her strict mother and because of the things that she's gone through, to then what does that do to affect her emotionally and in this case even mentally as she's trying to move on with her life, and how much is that causing her pain because this stuff that happened in her life when she was younger, it doesn't just go away.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one line in the movie where he says, "Oh, I'm tired of Valerie. I just want to make love to you." So it is about like where he almost gets jealous of this new male in her life, and that does summon him. And she starts having these memories about the Cravens. I love all of the little nods to, like Officer Kruger. The family that got killed were the Cravens. Sally Burns is one of the characters in there, which is a direct nod to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Marilyn Burns' character Sally. So I love all the little nods like that, but I do think that is kind of what, in the storyline, what summoned him was almost like this jealousy, and she eventually ends up in the same place that her sister does, in a mental institution.
So, dare I ask what the third one is about?
Third one takes place in 1990. A different.
Did you watch?
I watched these right when we were first starting the podcast. They were all on YouTube, and I wound up staying up all night on a Saturday night and watching a bunch of them. I think when I was trying to come up with potential movies for us to review at that point. And so I watched all three of them kind of in a row one night, and I started rewatching the first one after I watched this one again last night.
Is that the point at which you started to hate me?
No. I mean, you've definitely brought me some shitty movies, but I've returned the favor.
Santa Slay.
Yeah.
Not the name, man. Yeah. I assume you've seen it based on that giggle, Casey?
Santa Slay, yes.
Again, I'm really, really sorry.
Let's not talk about that.
One thing about this movie is the introduction of music, and just from the very beginning when we first see Courtney and Amy in Amy's car, and a song comes on the radio, and they both start singing along with it pretty well. I mean, the people that they got in this are actually talented and have good voices, but the music essentially kind of created for the movie stands out. It's not shitty songs. I mean, it's perfectly suited towards its era. It's not like stuff that we listen to in a modern day, but somebody did a good job of choosing the songs for this. And when the band performs, it kind of like, I think it elevates the film a little bit. It takes it out of just being another schlock midnight horror fest into, someone put some actual work into this thing.
And it actually was a real band. The band's music was actually performed by a real band called Wednesday Week. So there was actually a real band performing those songs. It wasn't. I'm not sure if they were exactly written for the movie or if it was just some of their material that they already had. But I thought that was pretty cool that they actually utilized tracks from a real working band at the time. And rock and roll was really prominent throughout. I mean, even the girls, when they get drunk off of champagne and eating Cheese Whiz, they're watching Rock and Roll High School. And you know, because all girls, they do that. They get in a line in front of a painting and they do a silly dance, and, you know, that's always what happens at slumber parties, right?
I mean, that was very evocative of Breakfast Club at that point, the doing the dance and the back and forth with the arms. And no, the funny thing is that Rock and Roll High School, the person who wrote this wrote the sequel to Rock and Roll High School, Rock and Roll High School Forever, which had Corey Feldman in it. So it may have been sort of a precursor to her getting to take over that next movie.
That's cool. I never knew that. That's awesome.
Did either of you notice that when she puts her headphones on to go to sleep that she's listening to her own band?
I did. I always thought that was a little humorous, and I wasn't sure if they ran out of music or if she just was really proud of what they had recorded.
I mean, well, maybe it is kind of a learning thing. Unlike Matt, I actually listen to this podcast because I try to find improvements, and I like to tell them when the audio has issues.
I just assume that we're on 10 at all times.
Yeah. But they do, I mean, the first song that they're singing in the car, that Tokyo Convertible song, is by a different band, and you would think that they would be using that as something that she would listen to at any time she put on her headphones.
Yeah, that's what I would think, because she was, you know, they're rocking out, and she had like full-on dance moves to the song and everything. So yeah, I always thought that was a little humorous that she was listening to her own band. I bet she wears her own shirts of her own band.
See, Corey, I wear my own shirt and my own band.
I wear your shirts.
Well, that's why you're
and
not
your underwear.
It's getting weird now. Do you guys think that this is the most in-depth conversation that has ever been had about Slumber Party Massacre?
I don't think so, just because there's been a fan site that I've followed forever, and I'm on, it's called the Old Hochstadter Place, and he actually did like a whole documentary on the series. So I think that guy's like the biggest fan ever, and I would love to sit down and talk Slumber Party Massacre and learn all of, you know, everything that I don't know. But I think on a podcast, yeah, this is probably the most thought anyone's put into it, at least for a while.
I'm glad that we could fulfill this assumingly empty void in your life. Slumber Party Massacre on the internet.
One thing I do want to mention about Part 3, the killer takes a totally different turn on this one. I mean, from Part 1, the guy's legitimately creepy. 2, he's likable. I mean, he's a killer and he's haunting her, but he's funny, so you like him. 3, he's like this Abercrombie and Fitch model, you know, from like the 90s. You know, he totally looks like a beach guy. And one thing that I always thought was interesting about the first 2 is right off the bat, you're aware of who the driller killer is. On Part 3, you're not aware of who he is. They try to mislead you with this, they call him the weirdo. It's actually Jan Burke, which is the Stairmaster. Stairmaster, it sounds like an exercise equipment, but he's the Stairmaster and the people under the stairs.
Nice.
They try to pin him as the killer. They try to make you think like, oh, that guy stalking him on the beach is the killer. But, you know, you're aware, you meet the killer right off the bat, but you're not aware that he's the killer. Unlike Part 1 and 2, it's introduced that he's causing problems. He's causing deaths. So I always thought that was a different little twist on Part 3.
Yeah, and that seemed like a common theme that kind of came out and started getting used a lot, is it's not just some random killer, it's someone that you know, it's someone that's close to you, and that was supposed to increase the horror factor. He, I think, was also inspired by his uncle, and so there was a lead-in to, is the uncle actually dead? Could the uncle be back from the dead at some point, and would the next movie be about him? But I was surprised that the uncle wasn't the original driller killer from the first movie. So it was completely separated.
Yeah, I thought they were going to take it to where he was the guy's uncle, and I don't know if I'm incorrect on this or not, but I believe that they were trying to say that his uncle molested him, and that's why he was acting out on the things that he did in Part 3. It was just pretty weird. It had some pretty uncomfortable scenes. There's a part where after he gets, it's been a while since I've watched Part 3. I would say that's my least favorite out of the trilogy. There's a part where I don't know if he gets acid or some kind of burn on his eyes, but he can't see.
Bleach.
But yeah, he's on top of this girl, and you know, he's asking her if he can do whatever he wants because she doesn't want him to kill her. I just thought that was such an unsettling part of the movie. It was really uncomfortable for me to watch.
The third one stands out as being really much more horrifying, and the deaths are much more gruesome than it was in the first two. I mean, obviously this one, number 2, was played quite a bit more for comedy. Number 1, when I was a kid and I saw it, it was just as disturbing as seeing Michael Myers or Jason kill people, kill random girls and stuff. But the third one was a much darker turn. And I think we talk about this sometimes, is that horror films have gotten to a point where they realize that a lot of the audience has become desensitized, and so they constantly have to up the ante. And I feel like that may be what they were doing in that one. But you're right, that whole scene of basically being given permission to rape this woman, and then still, because she was trying to distract him, once he realized it, killing her and killing the other girls anyways. It's pretty skeevy. You're right, it's my least favorite of these two.
Yeah, it was a bit uncomfortable to watch, especially when you're watching it with your family, because, I mean, that's the whole reason I got into horror films, was because of my parents. They used to go to the drive-in before I was born, and there was an old drive-in off of the highway, and they would play horror movies. So they saw like The Gates of Hell and Dead and Buried. So these are movies that when they were dating they saw, and then they introduced me to them. So they've always been very supportive that I'm a horror fiend, because they love horror movies too. That's why I'm the way that I am. But when I got the trilogy and we all watched part 3 together, I was like, kind of looking around. I was a little uncomfortable, and that it just took a darker turn. And another thing too, there's a part with like the boyfriend, and they make you think that these two that are in love are going to survive, and I mean right off the bat he gets it. So it was a different spin on it, on what the other two were, so I can appreciate that, but some of it was just very uncomfortable.
Really not making me want to watch the third one.
Yeah, it's got some funny parts, though. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. Do you remember that show? Not that I ever watched it, but I remember like flipping through the channels. It was like Sweet Valley High or something. It was about these two like twin blonde girls. I almost felt like at the beginning that's like what I was watching, because it was these girls and they're all in like this convertible and they're all like having this sing-along. And
well, this is the era 90210 was out at around the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, confession, I've read like a lot of the Sweet Valley High books when I was a kid, because my friend who lived across the street from me, she collected the series, and I picked one up and started reading it one day, and I got really hooked on it. I was a confused 14-year-old.
Hey, reading's reading. I read Babysitter's Club, but then I would read stuff like Goosebumps. So, I think that maybe Sweet Valley High, maybe it was just, maybe my parents thought it was a little too risque for me or something, because I don't know, it talked a lot about boys. I don't know, but I never got introduced to those. I know my sister read them because I saw a couple in her room, but I never got those from Scholastic Book Club when I was a kid.
If you're too young, Scholastic Book Club is what we did in grade school, and ours was. But we used to have like a table, and there would be all these books on the table, and you'd walk around and you'd decide what you want, and then you'd have to go convince your parents to buy it for you.
If you're too young, a book is a gathering of dead tree flesh that people have scripted words onto, much like a text message, only much longer and doesn't change for you automatically.
And grammatically correct.
Yes. No emoticons.
What you're listening to right now would have been a book 15 years ago, and it would take much longer to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people paid money for them. They willingly paid money for them. And if your school was really cool, they would even have the little Scholastic form that would come home, and then you would circle all the things. So, just ways to try to get more money out of you. But I thought it was awesome because I love to read, and I got some, really cool books. I remember getting the Haunted Mask from Goosebumps. It was like the little pre-order, and then I remember I read that, and then they actually had like the made-for-TV movie, and I remember watching like the premiere of that. So that was pretty awesome. They should still do that in school if they don't.
They do something similar. I don't know if it's still Scholastic, but my friend is a teacher, and I've seen her with those order forms for her kids more than once. So they're still reading. We're just teasing right now.
I don't know though. People's attention spans are so short. I mean, they want info like really quick, really short, and yeah, I hope they're still reading books. Otherwise, we're doomed.
I was super pumped. A friend of the show, Seth, I gave his son my Goosebumps books from when I was a kid. I had like 1 through 70 or whatever in a big bin, and they went and saw the Jack Black movie, and he apparently went home and instantly started reading the books.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Awesome.
That's so cool.
Goosebumps is what got me into horror too, and my mom still is a huge Stephen King fan.
He should have gone home and listened to Tenacious D, but still, I'll accept this.
I think he's a little young for Tenacious D.
You're never too young for the D. Wow, that sounded terrible. I'm sorry, audience.
Wow. That's Corey. Corey said that.
Yeah, not my real name.
You can send it to him.
So Crystal Bernard, yeah, you already mentioned she was on Wings. At the time that this came out, she was actually on a show called It's a Living, which was about cocktail waitresses at a restaurant. It was one of those things that was syndicated in the 80s. She had been on the final couple seasons of Happy Days before that, but she was kind of a well-known commodity on TV, or at least getting there. So to see her in this, I think this is one of those things that she sort of disavows now. But a lot of the other actresses, I hadn't seen in a lot of stuff. I think 2 of them were in Young Doctors in Love. The woman who plays Amy, Kimberly MacArthur, she was 1982. She was a Playmate, Playboy, and not the one who goes topless in this. Which good
I
for
thought
her
that was
too.
interesting.
Yeah,
She was annoying.
Amy was annoying. I thought it was the drummer that was the annoying one with the zit.
Sally.
Crazy.
So I had the names wrong. She sucked.
Just disappears randomly, hooks up with some hot guy on the way to the grocery store, and then they call the police. They call officers Kruger and Voorhees, and boy, they just were not forgiving about that at all. Hey, our friend's missing. You shit kids and your drugs, and you just wasted $200 of the taxpayers' time. And
Now you're getting paid shitty then, police officer.
Our friend was legitimately missing, though. We're sorry to bother you.
So,
yeah, and then she's like, did I do something wrong? And then he's just such a smartass to her about it. It's like, okay.
I shopped.
So she was apparently also in Friday the 13th, Part 7.
Yes, she, again, I feel bad saying spoilers, but there was plenty of disclaimers at the beginning. But, yeah, she goes skinny dipping, and it almost seems like she's the same character as Slumber Party Massacre 2 in this movie. It's like Sally went into this movie, and yeah, she gets killed in the lake while skinny dipping.
She probably had it coming.
Yeah, probably.
Everybody in Friday the 13th has it coming. And that's her second Corey Feldman tie-in for the night.
What? Why do you know
Corey Feldman was in Part 4 and 5 of Friday the 13th.
Wow.
It was Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah.
It's really been a very long time since I've seen those movies.
And in Part 5, it was similar to Slumber Party Massacre 3, where the entire time you're assuming that Tommy was the one who was the killer, and we get misled. Turn out to be the dad.
Show your delivery of that. Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, can we just comment on the fact that nobody seems to give a shit about anybody else in this movie? Like, when people start dying, everybody runs out of the room and leaves Sally by herself to get just massacred. And they're all sitting there. They're in the next fucking room. The next room, a door is all that separates them. The guy drills through her into the phone as they're trying to make a phone call, but none of them are like, I wonder how Sally's doing in there with the guy who's trying to kill us with the drill guitar. And then later on, when Sheila comes back into the house and Courtney and Amy have barricaded themselves into one of the bedrooms, they hear her. They go to start moving the dresser away from the door. Then they hear the driller killer sing a little bit, and he's got like 3 or 4 verses to go in the song, but they just like, nope, fuck it, put the dresser back. Just let's see. And then they hold on to the dresser as she gets drilled through it, so the dresser's shaking and they're putting pressure on it to keep it sitting. So just like, massively, well, we need a new singer and a new drummer. You want to just do a duo? You want to do like an Everly Brothers kind of thing now? Until later on when Amy's like, don't let go of my hands. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna let go of your hands now because the guy's behind me.
Yeah, and I've always tried to figure out what he was saying because he comes out and he like knocks her with the drill on his guitar, and it sounds like he goes Lily Rod, and we're like, what is he saying? That's not like even close to any of their names. So we kind of figured out maybe it was Let It Rock and Roll because we could not understand him.
Yeah, the best line in the movie is probably him saying, "I can't get no satisfaction."
Yeah, I also love when he like pops up in the car and he's got the little ropes behind his ear and he's like, "This is dedicated to the one I love." I cannot watch this movie without like repeating every single line. It's probably insanely annoying for anyone watching the movie with me, but it's just a great time. I think it's a great gateway horror movie for people who don't necessarily like horror movies. I think it's a great one to show them because there are so many humorous parts that might get them to watch other horror movies.
Yeah, it's violent, but it's not scary, and it's more just. I mean, you have to accept the ridiculousness of it that this guy's got a guitar with a drill on it, and at some point in the backseat of the car, he drills through the guy in the front seat when there's no fathomable way that guitar would have been able to stick from the back to the seat without, being bent.
Hey, one thing I appreciate about that whole scene is even though he was getting drilled, he did manage to stop the car and put it in park long enough to, for them to get out. So.
Absolutely, because safety first.
Yeah.
I never noticed that. God, you're far more perceptive than I am. I do believe that the quote you're referring to, I think he says, "Let's buzz."
Which is a song of his.
Yeah, that's his song when he's, and yes, I do know all the words to it and maybe some of the dance moves too, but I can't do the worm when he does like that little worm thing on the ground. I can't do that, but I love when he slides down the banister to "Let's Buzz."
Well, practice makes perfect, so
yeah.
Practice your worm, you'll get it one day.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to create a Freddy Krueger kind of comedy killer, doing a rock and roll guy who sings as he's about to kill you, I think this was as good as it was going to get. I think that's the next logical direction to go in, and I'm really impressed with it. It could just be just a forgettable horror flick, and it's because of those little touches. It's not. It stands out, and I think it works.
I think I'm mildly upset that neither of you have mentioned the guitar solos.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
she goes underwater, and that's what you see when you're drowning is.
Yep. Yeah. The thing I remember most from the first time I saw it is when he's standing on the roof and they're like running away, and he's just shredding tasty licks.
So good.
It's a really unique character. You haven't seen one similar to this. At least I haven't. That's almost positive one exists, but you haven't really seen one done in a similar fashion. Should bring it back.
Yeah, because I love 80s horror that ties in the rock and roll element, and I mean like Black Roses is a favorite of mine, but Damien's character, I mean he's not even in the same league like as the Driller Killer. I mean they both have different elements. So the one thing that's great about the Driller Killer in part 2 is I mean he's like this rocker. I mean he's like. It's kind of like a 50s greaser rocker rather than like an 80s rocker, but he does have that like 80s, like he's got all like the leather fringe going on and he's like totally clad in black leather. But there really isn't a character like him because, he's a killer and a lot of times you're not rooting for the killer. I mean, sometimes you are, but at this one, like there's been so many backstories and build up with developing the characters, but you still like the Driller Killer, and I mean, yeah, he's killing them off, but a lot of them had it coming, and I don't know, his character's just so funny and likable. Like, I love the character. I've tried to look up the actor to see if he was in anything else. His name's Atanis, and he actually went on to record several albums.
Yeah, so. Unfortunately, he kept killing every producer he worked with, so it didn't really work out for him.
Yeah, I think he ended up being a teacher or something after that, which is funny because there was another the one that plays TJ in the movie, he actually ended up being an English teacher. I was on this app called Horror Amino, which is like a little social network for horror fans. And there was a girl on there that said, oh, one of my teachers, he mentioned he was in horror movies, and I looked him up, and I thought, that sounds like the guy from Slumber Party Massacre 2 and from Pumpkinhead, and sure enough, it was him, and I was like, oh my gosh, do you think he'd be up for an interview? And she's like, oh, I don't go to that school anymore, but, you know, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, what are the odds that he even mentioned it? Because a lot of these people that are in these 80s horror movies, a lot of times they don't want to talk about it anymore. And I think it's really cool. I wish that one of my English teachers would have been someone from Slumber Party Massacre too.
Did anybody, like, this depends on if you're into anything that he does, but TJ in this movie, who was pretty much the most annoying character in the entire universe, reminded me so much of Adam Devine from Workaholics. Like, I couldn't stop thinking it the entire time. Like, I want a remake of this movie to happen just because Adam Devine needs to play TJ in it.
Now I see it, now that you bring it up. Totally.
I would say, like, season 3 and on, Adam Devine from Workaholics. Not season 1 and 2.
No, absolutely not.
But
and
yeah.
Certainly not Adam Devine from, Modern Family. But
True. What other shit did he do? He was in some garbage.
He's lots of garbage. It's called his films.
Oh, you take that back.
Well, I love Pitch Perfect, but
oh yeah, he was in Pitch Perfect and 2. Okay. Yeah. No.
His new one looks. Oh man! As much as I'm gonna try, because I love the actresses in it, it just looks so bad. The two girls that
Mike and Dave need wedding dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Have fun with that. Let me know how it is.
No. I'm not going to pay to see that. I'll rely on you.
You know what you should.
Right. What's that?
Conjuring 2 was actually phenomenal.
We've talked about going to see it. We need a date night, so that is a possibility. I still need to see the first one though.
You don't need to see the first one to understand the second one.
Yeah, but I kind of want to. But I don't want to see Annabelle apparently.
Whatever you want. It's America. But yeah, don't see Annabelle.
And I don't want to die and have someone run off with my body. That's a reference to a news story from last week.
That's true. Casey, have you seen either Conjuring?
No, I have not. A lot of times I get, like, I run Central Valley Horror Club, so I do monthly horror movie screenings. I've done that since 2008. And a lot of times I have people that tell me, oh, you've got to see this movie. You'll love it. And then there's so much hype about it, and then I watch it, and I'm a little let down. So I've heard a lot of great things about The Conjuring and about The Conjuring 2, but in my opinion, I feel like there's so many movies from the past that I haven't even gotten to experience yet that I'm so focused on trying to play catch up on all these things that I've missed. So I haven't seen those, but I would be willing to give them a shot. I've heard great things about Part 2.
Yeah, we try to do a mix of modern and classic horror as much as we can. I mean, we've gone back all the way. Thanks to Matt Vincent, we did the original Nosferatu.
Oh, awesome.
But for the most part, we stick between 70s to modern. And yeah, you reward yourself. You watch a crappy film, you watch a good film. You watch something that's maybe not quite your taste, and then you watch something that's a little bit more fun or at least has a deeper story. But there's definitely some good stuff coming out, but I agree. It's nice to get back to those classic films and catch up on the ones that you haven't watched.
I do want to give you a quick disclaimer because you sounded actually excited about the fact that we did Nosferatu. Don't listen to it expecting to actually listen to us talk about Nosferatu. Matt and I both really like drinking beer, and when you put us together, it's like a perfect storm, which turns into a tornado, and then 3 hours of conversation.
And that's just the sex.
So, yes, what he said. But yeah, so I don't want you to listen to it and be like, "Wow, these guys really fucked the dog on this one." But yeah, Nosferatu was great. I hadn't seen it up until then, so it was really cool. So, like Corey said, we do new and old, and it's nice because there's a lot of things that I haven't seen. There's so many horror movies out there,
and that's even made better by the guests that we have and by people like Jeff who write in because they give suggestions. And that's why anytime we have someone like you on, we want you to be able to choose the movie so that it's not always just stuff suited to our tastes. And sometimes it'll get us out of our shells and introduce us to something that we haven't seen before.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, you guys want to wrap this up with some rankings?
Sure. Heavyweight champion of the horror movie world. I said it. Do we do it on three categories? We do rewatchability, story, and scariness on a 0 to 5 scale. We'll start with rewatchability. Casey, what do you give it?
On Slumber Party Massacre 2,
Yes.
Yeah.
rewatchability absolutely a 5 because I think that there's a little something for everybody. I think there's things that you will miss the first or second or third time that you watch it, and I don't know. I think it's just a great time. I've watched this movie so many times, so obviously I'm going to give the rewatchability a 5. But it's a great one to watch with the group, especially like if you're having like I showed it at like probably my 17th birthday party, and everyone thought I was out of my damn mind, which I am. But they were like, "Why are we watching this?" By the end, they're like, "Yeah, that was so awesome." So I think it's a great one to watch with the crowd. I actually showed that at a public screening that I did in Fresno in 2012, and that was a surreal experience. You know, they promoted it on the news, and it's like 5 a.m., and I'm getting ready to go live on the news, and there's images of the driller killer being previewed before, and I'm like, this is a surreal experience because this movie's meant so much to me, and then I'm going on live TV in Fresno on the news to talk about it. So I hope that other people were introduced to it and love it as much as I do. Absolutely 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 4. Like I said, I watched it when I was in high school, and then I watched it again, but I actually bought it on DVD for this podcast. So now that I own it and it's at my disposal, I assume I will be watching it a lot more.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say honestly, I probably would have rated it lower, but doing this show with you, and especially thinking about the idea of watching with a group, I'm gonna raise my score to a 4 as well.
Story 0 to 5. Casey, you're up.
Storyline, I'd say 4. They try to tie it in with the first one, but they don't really. I mean, they really just created this whole new world and this whole new character because while we are introduced to Courtney in part 2 is completely different actress, completely different personality. She's not this annoying, like, little kid sister that wants to hang out with her older sister all the time. So, I would say 4 because I do like the storyline that they went with it. I did think it was funny. I thought it was humorous. You know, she's got these rowdy friends. They go away for a weekend. She lies to her mom, and essentially everybody dies except her when she was saying that she was going to a very strict, her friend's house with very strict parents. So I'd say 4 storyline. It does work as a standstill movie. You don't have to watch part 1 or part 3 to get it and to enjoy it. So I'd say 4. Obviously, I'm a little biased because I like this movie so much. So I'd say maybe between 3 and 4, just because it doesn't actually tie in to the first one.
Now you get to make your scores yourself. You don't have to worry about accountability with anybody else. We will shit on the damn movie. It doesn't matter because we're not right. We're just other opinions.
Yeah.
By the way, I love strict parents whose house has a booze closet and you find random sex dolls in the beds.
Yeah, that's super strict. You know, every strict family that I've went over to, they have at least one of those laying around.
I went to private high school, so everyone's parents were strict, but
And all had sex dolls.
nah, I don't remember sex dolls, but there was a lot of drinking.
I don't necessarily mean inflatable ones.
Damn it, you just ruined my childhood. I'm going to go 3.5 for story. It's phenomenal. I haven't seen 1 or 3, and I don't really feel like seeing 1 or 3 is going to change how much I do truly enjoy 2.
Yeah, 2 stands out, so I'm going to give it a 3. It's definitely got a better story than the last 2, or the other 2.
Yeah, the characters were a little more rounded out. In this one, you get a little bit more insight into their individual personalities rather than just a bunch of kids that want to go have sex. Like Amy's character, she's a little bit more reserved, and I believe her boyfriend's named Jeff. They're like the least rowdy out of the group. So I did like that they gave the characters a little bit more individual personalities.
Yeah, she doesn't come across as someone who's trying to pressure Courtney. She doesn't. She seems like a normal person. You know, it's one thing to have the final girl be the normal person out of the whole group. That's something that you'd see in Friday the 13th and all this. There's like one normal person or a normal couple, and everybody else has got these really extreme personalities. Nobody was so super extreme in this other than TJ. Most of the people were pretty average, but you know, as far as this type of movie goes, probably the most believable that you'd find in the way of characters.
Scariness, 0 to 5. Casey.
I'd say maybe a 1.5. It never scared me. It might scare someone who just doesn't like gore, because there are some pretty gory parts, you know, where the drill comes through the chest, and I mean, the zit exploding. It's got some pretty gross stuff. So I think for someone who's a little squeamish, it could be scarier. Never has scared me. Just highly entertaining.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 0 just because even when I first saw it when I was a teenager, it didn't scare me. But that could be my lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah, 1 and 3 disturb me more than this one, so I'm not going to go high on scariness. I will give it a 1 just because of the zit scene.
That was gross, and it ends up in her mouth. I mean, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, that was foul.
The mouth makes it grosser than if it just popped.
And the noise too. It's like.
Oh God.
Sick.
You can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. You can email us at pot@gncast.com, or you can leave us a message on our website. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Podcastateer, and also subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any of your favorite podcatchers. And please be sure to leave us feedback and a 5-star review on whichever one you like. All of the subscription options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe. Finally, you can join us on Facebook under the Galactic Netcast page. Casey, where can everyone find everything that you do?
You can find my website at thehomicidalhomemaker.com, and I do have links to all of my social media outlets on there. I'm on YouTube at youtube.com/homicidalhomemaker, Instagram at instagram.com/homicidalhomemaker. Twitter is Homicidal Casey, which is KACI, because they won't let me have my full-length name on there. It's a little too long. And I'm also delving into the world of Snapchat, and I kind of don't get it just yet, but if you'd like to add me on there, I'm also Homicidal Casey on there. And, gosh, I feel like I'm leaving off another social network. I'm on Pinterest and Facebook, facebook.com/Homicidal Homemaker. So do go to my website. I do have links to all of those on there, so it's easy to find. And if you do have any cooking questions, or there's a theme that you'd like to see on the show, you can feel free to send me a message on any of those social media outlets, or email me at ask@thehomicidalhomemaker.com. I will give the disclaimer that you may not actually get the answer that you're seeking when you ask a question, a cooking question, but feel free to send them my way.
There will be a link to her website in the show notes, as always. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Matt the Lifeguard.
And you can find my comics at donutcomics.com.
Awesome. Casey, thank you for taking the time. I know we had to plan this one out quite a bit, but it was an honor to have you on our show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome to come back anytime. If you think of a movie, you see a movie you want to talk about, just say the word and you can come back.
Awesome. I'm always up for talking horror movies.
Awesome.
We're always up for treats, so people click on the links. Show up hungry, because you're going to see some great stuff that you want to eat.
That's very true. So thank you again for listening to another episode of the Podcastateer, and we will catch you guys next week. Cool. All right. Awesome, Casey. Thank you very much. It was.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so informed. Like, I try to come in with as much trivia knowledge and background thoughts on movies as I can. You taught me some stuff, and I was very, very grateful to have someone so engaged.
Thank you. It annoys most people, because I'll sit there and be like, this person was in this movie and this person was in that, and did you know on this special effect they didn't, I'll just go off on all of this annoying stuff. But
I am the same way.
That's what horror is
to me. Think I'm Ready Player One. They just like all the time like, oh, Corey knows all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm a super lazy fan of everything. I'll admit it. So it's nice when people are informed. I'm a casual lover of a lot of things. So
nice to be normal.
Well, it keeps it fun too, because a lot of people, it's what entertains them and what keeps them happy. And then for other people, they like to know everything that goes on behind the scenes. When I was really, really, really young, my parents loved horror movies, as I mentioned, but I was really, really scared of them. I remember being like 3 years old, them watching both the original Fly and then the remake of The Fly, and they sent me to bed. I was so freaking scared. But I remember being scared of the Thriller video, and my mom's like, "You're watch this documentary. That's Michael Jackson. It's not scary." And she's like, "Watch. This is how they're doing the thing on his eyes, and they were putting the contacts in, and you know, she told me it's not real. I don't know why you're scared." And that's why I started liking the movies. I wanted to know all about that, and so that's why I'm a big geek. As soon as I watch a movie, I'm like on IMDb, I'm on Wikipedia, I'm like Googling anything I can. I want to know what the people are doing now, if that was, you know, it for their career. And I'm like this with not just horror movies, just movies in general. So I appreciate any time that I get to talk about all the things that I like, and sometimes I kind of, you know, go on and on and on about them, but.
No, you're like soulmates right now. That's exactly the way that I am, looking all that stuff up, and that's why my brain has clicked on these things. But what's probably the best thing about what you do is that you take it and you use it creatively. You take your love of these horror movies and you make something out of it, and you turn it into something else that no one else has thought of before. And I think that that's a really just excellent thing to have happen. You know, it's one thing to love horror stuff and just be, oh, I watch a lot of horror movies and I've got a lot of DVDs and I've got maybe a signed poster or something. But to create something and share that with the world, I think that's huge.
Thank you so much. You know, when we started putting the show out there, because the show's been in the works for a long time. When I first launched the website in 2012, I always wanted to bring the video element into it, but I didn't really have the means. I didn't have the crew, and I went through several people, and it just wasn't a right fit. Like, they didn't get what my vision was, and I kind of started thinking that maybe the show wasn't going to happen. And then I got in touch with Neptune Cinema. We became great friends, and it worked out. But there's always that risk that it might be a good idea to you, but someone else may not like it, or they may not get it. So it was a little nerve-wracking because, you know, putting a website together and putting a recipe on there, I mean, people will go to it and people will make it around Halloween. But with YouTube and doing video production, there's a lot more cost and a lot more time that goes into it. So having that risk over your head where, you know, you're not sure if anyone's going to appreciate it or understand it or watch it, it was a little nerve-wracking. But we've had really, really great responses to it, which has been very encouraging. And you know, we have a lot of fun doing it. We've all become such great friends, and I don't think a lot of people realize all of the work that goes into each episode. Like the little miniature models, my producer, he builds those. So I don't know if you guys saw the episode that we uploaded on Wednesday, the Tombstone Popsicles.
Yeah.
So,
and when you hand the popsicle off to the in the grave.
So it's so incredible how he does this. He made that whole cemetery. Like, he built it. It's a little miniature model. So he shot me in front of a green screen, and then he put me in the model and put me in the cemetery. And then the zombie hand was actually my friend, and he put his hand through, like, we had 2 tables with a board with a hole cut out. So we actually got real dirt from outside and, like, put it in the garage. And that was all done in front of the green screen. And when I actually, like, leaned down, that was in front of a green screen. And then he shot me handing him the popsicle. But the part where I actually leaned down and the hands coming up, that was like composited together from 2 different shots. And then the cemetery's in the back. And all of the music and everything's completely original for the show. So
no, it looked seamless. And it reminded me of the town that they built in Beetlejuice. You know, it's got that kind of feel to it, that little kind of doll town that they make, the miniature of where they live. And it is such a spectacular amount of production. I mean, it just looks so good. And, I mean, we sit here and we talk about movies, and we don't really concentrate on the YouTube part. We publish it there because that may be some way that people find it. But to see people creating actual content that has high production value and something that is visually interesting, that really stands out. And I hope that more people find you. I hope we help some people find you, because I think what you're doing just really deserves the attention.
Thank you so much. And the rest of the crew, they're over there, but they can't hear everything because I've got headphones in. But I know that they'd really appreciate that too. We all wear a lot of hats, and we all do this outside of our already busy schedules and full-time jobs. So this is like our full-time job that we don't get paid for. So it means a lot that you guys like it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a reason to put it out if people didn't like it. So thank you.
Yeah, coming from 2 guys that do a lot of podcasts that is a pretty thankless job, I totally know where you're coming from. And my wife hates it, but she'll deal with it. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you. We should probably let you go. It is past my bedtime because
Well, thank you guys for allowing me to postpone. We had a pretty busy day. We realized we had to get some things done that if we didn't get them done, we were not going to have a new episode up in time. So, and I think everyone's in for a real treat with this next episode. There is going to be a little bit of a gap because we are starting a new partnership with a company with an on-demand service. So the videos will be available a week before on there before they're available on our platform. So there will be about a 3-week gap between the previous episode and the next one, but I think you guys will like it, so please let me know what you think. We had a lot of fun. It was very silly, so. Yeah,
if there's ever anything specific you want us to push for, you just let me know. I mean, we're happy to help, and I don't know. I really like helping people that don't suck. I don't know. No easy way to put it. So.
And like you said, open invitation to come back anytime. But we look forward to seeing more of what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, if you ever want to BS about horror, I'm here.
That is all we ever do.
That's true. Every week we do it. But since you have such an extensive knowledge of bad movies, if you want to just go ahead and start planning something for like 2.5, 3 months out, we can do that.
I'd love to talk about the stuff, the original Night of the Demons. I love the Night of the Demons Part 2. Don't like the remake. I will shit on that, but...
Awesome.
Funny stuff, because we're actually doing the stuff next week with Mike Krawczyk.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to have to tune in for that. I might ask a few questions on your little live chat.
We're recording it tomorrow night, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when we were mentioning having you on, I was like, oh, we should ask her if she wants to watch the stuff, because I'm like, she could make the stuff.
Yeah, she can make.
I won't say what, but stay tuned. there's something coming up. I try not to say too much about what we're doing. That's why I don't post a whole lot of behind the scenes stuff, because I like it to be a surprise.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they ask for stuff, and I'm gonna just be patient. Something's been done, or something's in the works. I can't say what, so yeah, just stay tuned. That's all I'll say.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank you guys so much, and have a great night, and get to bed. Sorry to keep you past your bedtime, but...
That's fine. I just have to go to work tomorrow. Just a couple extra cups of coffee, and I'll be fine.
And give our best to your team.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank them for us.
Hey, guys, they said thank you. They're just looking at me like, what?
For what?
Because I've just been in here talking for the past hour, and then I say something to them.
Yeah.
Oh, they said you're welcome.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Casey. Go have a good night.
You too. Good night.
Take care.
Bye.